Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Geek Warning podcast, brought to you by the Escape Collective, the show where we filter the latest and greatest in the world of bicycle tech to help you make your own bike as good as it can be. I'm James Huang, and I'm joined here in our virtual studio by our full cast of tech editors. Over in Sydney, Australia, we've got Dave Rome. Hi, Dave.
Hey, James.
And over in Ireland, we've got Ronan McLaughlin. Hi, Ronan.
Hi, James.
You're wearing an
Dave.
appropriate color shirt today.
I always wear green. You might not always see it, but I'm always wearing green.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. You're always wearing green somewhere, whether it is on or off camera.
That fact may be incorrect. Maybe false.
Dave, you're looking nice and trim with your new haircut here.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm curious, how much longer are you going to let the stuff on top grow?
As long as it still grows. I'm holding on to it.
Interesting. Okay. Whereas I'm sitting here constantly cutting all my hair off. Anyway, we're skipping our usual news this week because we've got an especially amazing episode for you today. Because it's time for our annual award show where we look back on the year and reveal our favorite highs and lows of 2023. Wondering what our favorite purchases were this year or what product we want the most? What are we most excited to see in 2024? And what was the most, maybe underwhelming thing in bicycle tech in 2023? We're going to reveal all of that in just a second, but first a quick reminder that it's entirely through membership dues that we're able to fund our entire operation of both written and audio content here at Escape Collective, employee salaries and all. So if you're not already a member, head over to escapecollective.com/join to sign up. We've got multiple tiers of membership and not only monthly and annual, but even lifetime options. So figure out which one works best for you and help us continue to do what we do here. All right, back to the awards. Fair warning, our categories here might be a little unconventional, but hopefully a little more insightful and entertaining as a result. So we're going to just go ahead and dive in. We're going to kick things off with a pretty big one. What do we think was the biggest tech trend of 2023? Dave, I'm going to start with you. What do you think here? Who gets that award?
Biggest tech trend of 2023. I mean, there were a few. I think 12-speed mechanical was perhaps arguably the biggest. I would think, in my mind, perhaps all the new car collaborations, though, was perhaps the most interesting of the tech trends. It is a trend we've seen before, but not for a few years, and all of a sudden we seem to have a bunch more. And some were more interesting than others, but yeah, it does seem like a lot more than just the stuff we've seen before of slapping a car brand on a pre-existing bicycle with a new paint and a leather bar tape and calling it done. There was some pretty innovative releases there. So yeah, I think there's a couple things there to discuss.
I guess the Aston Martin one in particular was especially intriguing.
Yes. So we briefly tried to arrange a podcast on that, but didn't quite hear back in the end. So we might not have a deeper discussion on that bike, but yeah, I think that one does have a lot of intriguing stuff going on, including its own brakes, which is probably one of the more polarizing elements, but does make for an interesting looking package.
It certainly gives us something to talk about. Ronan, anything that struck your fancy this year as far as big tech trends?
I was kind of racking my brains to think of what it was. It's so hard to think back to the start of the year. Like, we've got a list of categories here and you're trying to fill out one for each, and it gets... Yeah, you're trying to think back. It's been a quick year, but it's been a long year. I was going to say just about everything getting, sort of lighter and sort of more aero, new do-it-all frames, but I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go with classified and different wheel brand collaborations, because there was a period around about, I don't know, was it like March, April, May time, where it just seemed to be like every wheel brand under the sun was coming out with a classified collaboration of some sort. And when I say collaboration, effectively, put the shell for the classified parts of the hub into their rear wheel. Hunt did it, Parkour did it. I'm drawing a blank now on other ones, but yeah, that was a trend for a bit. Still a trend because those things are still available.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does seem like classified kind of has hit its stride this past year. It'll still be interesting to see where that company goes, and we're still hearing rumors as far as like control integration and stuff like that. But yeah, their stock seems to be rising. So one that we'll continue to watch into 24.
Yeah, I think, James, I'm keen to hear what your biggest tech trend was that you think has happened over the last year.
I don't know if this is so much like a tech trend as far as like actual product goes, but it's kind of more of an industry thing. My biggest trend was just blowouts everywhere. And I'm not talking tire blowouts. I'm talking about like crazy deals.
There were some tire blowouts too.
There maybe were some tire blowouts too, but I'm talking about like
insane
insane deals as far as being able to buy stuff at just massive discounts. One of the latest ones that just popped up, a couple of people messaged me last night as we're recording this. Kona, popular brand out of the Pacific Northwest here in the U.S., it really wasn't that long ago that they were just the absolute darling of the industry. Like, it seemed like they could do no wrong. They were totally at the forefront of all the mountain bike trends. And they just announced a buy one, get one deal on their process line of trail and enduro bikes. And
oh my.
I had seen stuff like this in previous months from like Marin and GT, but those were usually restricted to cheaper bikes. And the Kona one is like full on buy one, get another bike of equal value. And I did a quick search last night and this morning, and that includes their top end process that has a retail of $8,200 US. So if you wanted to buy two of those, you can go ahead and do that and essentially get an $8,200 discount.
Will they let you just buy one at 50% off, or do you have to take the second one?
Oh no, they're clearly interested in reducing their inventory. So,
yeah, okay.
Wow. So that's probably the most extreme example I've seen of some crazy deals that we've seen going on, but it's definitely not the only one. I actually went online yesterday, and the Pros Closet is kind of like they specialize in a lot of like used and industry overstock sort of stuff. And they were running some crazy sale yesterday. I actually ended up buying a bunch of clothing for myself. I bought a Shimano 12-speed chain for like $11.
What?
So it's, I mean,
how worn was it?
Good question. They didn't specify, but it was brand new. All the stuff that I bought was brand new.
Wow.
And it was just insanely cheap. They had like Shimano M540 clipless pedals for like no amount of money. You know, may have even been cheaper than what you paid for the cleats. I can't remember now, but it is just unbelievable the sorts of deals that are out there, which is great if you are a consumer, not so great if you are part of the industry that is looking to recover some of your capital and some of your cash for presumably a rough stint ahead. But that for me is the biggest trend of 23, and that could end up being the biggest trend of 24. It still remains to be seen because it looks like that whole thing is picking up steam instead of slowing down.
Well, I'm going to award you the award of the awards for having the best tech trend. So,
all right then.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't know we were assigning winners for each category.
We're not, but I just decided yours is so clearly better than what both Ronan and I had suggested that you get an award.
Okay, winner. Do I get a prize? Do I get a physical prize?
We'll have to discuss that. You get an NFT.
Awesome. So I get nothing. All right. Moving on. Next category. This one, Dave, I think this one you posted in our show notes here. What happened this year that we couldn't actually believe happened?
Oh, yeah. The I Can't Believe That Happened award. Shimano did a recall. I think, it probably doesn't need too much more explanation than that, but years of reports of crank failures in the market and a whole Instagram account dedicated to proving that this isn't, a one-off case. I didn't actually think we'd ever see the day where Shimano did an official recall on these. I thought they'd continue just kind of behind the scenes accepting warranties on these cranks and replacing them when they were required to replace them. But nope, they went ahead and did effectively a global recall on them. And yeah, whether you think it's been handled well or not, beside the point is, they actually acknowledged the issue and replacing cranks now, as long as yours are showing damage. It's still, it's obviously very much a touchy subject for a lot of people, but that's the award I didn't think would happen.
It is kind of remarkable for as messy as it has been and likely will continue to be. I certainly was just as surprised as you or anybody else was to see that this did actually happen, considering it is far from a secret that they were dealing with these crank failures.
Yep.
It's been 10 years, something like that.
Yeah,
almost?
It kind of felt like it was too late to do anything with it. It kind of felt like if they were ever going to do something with it, it would have happened 2 to 3 years before. But nope, here we are.
Well, it did. Ronan, you have an entry to this category as well. It's a little more humorous.
I'm going to remind you of the mistake that I made with the SIS Nootropics caffeine gels back in May, when I hadn't seen the absolutely minuscule small print on the back of the gel. It says maximum 1 per day, and I had taken 6 of these things, if I remember correctly, which is about 1,200 milligrams of caffeine plus another. I can't remember how much other caffeine I took that day or both those days, but that was a nasty surprise.
other than your train spotting incident that followed that, what's I know you had a few other people being like, oh wow, I didn't know that. No wonder I've been feeling unwell. Has there been any update on the packaging since, or is it still a very much a PSA?
Not that I'm aware of. I would need to check that again. But yeah, the sheer number of people that I had reach out after that and say I did the exact same thing, or I know someone who did the exact same thing, or scarily from a guy in the same race that I made that mistake, who had taken, I think it was 15 of these things. Now, even if there's a bit of exaggeration in there, let's say it's exaggerated by a handful, that's still 10 of these gels that you're only supposed to have one a day. So yeah, there's clearly an issue there. It wasn't just me being an idiot. I know of one person who had gone to great lengths to try and get SIS to update their packaging, and they hadn't done so. I don't want to say they haven't done yet. I'll need to go and check.
I would say that's the less of the I can't believe it happened award and more of the products to make you shit yourself award.
Dave, that's the wrong category. I think that was the Tom Dumoulin award.
I had another product or another incident for that category that you just mentioned there, Dave, and that was, you remember when Rui Costa, his mechanic, had installed 1x bolts instead of 2x bolts on his time trial chainring, and the chainring came off in the start ramp? I'm sure he had a similar incident that I had when that happened.
All of a sudden had some AG2R shorts.
Yes.
Oh no.
Just for the record, that didn't happen to me.
Yeah, okay. All right.
The shorts were fine.
All right, well, I don't have an entry for this category, so we're just going to move on to the next one, because I do have one for that. This is going to be for the It's About Time award, and I am nominating the fact that wide road tires are finally becoming so broadly adopted that we actually now criticize brands that don't include 28mm tires stock. Ronan, I remember when you were at the tour, you kind of took a survey of what sizes various teams were running there, and I think it was only, one or two teams that were running something narrower than a 28mm printed width tire?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. Was there even one team running narrower than a 28 printed? Potentially Cofidis on their Michelin tubulars, but I can't remember exactly, but the vast majority of the tires in the peloton were printed 28, and some were measuring up as far as 32, depending on the rims that they were on.
And Dave, do you remember, I think it was Josh Portner at Silco who had predicted that, well, one, that the entire peloton was going to go tubeless, but two, I think he had called last year or even 2 years ago as something about how this was going to happen in terms of width, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I think it was a lot longer ago, actually, because I wrote an article off the back of his statement. I'm going to say probably 3 years ago now, maybe 4 years ago. So, yeah.
I think he said it was going to happen within 5 years or something.
Within 5 years, everyone would be, the whole peloton would be, pro peloton would be on tubeless tires in wider widths, higher volume. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think we're quite there yet, but it's starting to look like he's right. So, yeah, I think it's definitely a trend, and it's definitely, I would say, happened a lot quicker than most people thought. So, well done, Josh.
It's your suggestion, James, or your award. So I'll not put words in your mouth, but I think where I don't have a problem with manufacturers speccing something other than or narrower than a 28 is when it matches the rim. I think that's worth saying. A lot of people still like and prefer 25mm tires. Where I struggle is when something like, the Cannondale I reviewed recently, it had rims that were clearly optimized for at least a 28. And they were, tubeless compatible and all that, and then they were spec'd with 25mm GP5000 tube type only tires, which, that to me, I think most people buying that bike are going to want to upgrade those tires pretty soon, which is, you don't want to do that when you buy a new bike.
Yeah, that seemed more like a spec availability, component availability woes, supply chain issues than desired choice. But yeah, I guess the other comparison point there is like Specialized Tarmac, which comes with its own, Roval Rapide wheels and a 26mm tire, which measures just shy of 28. But yeah, that is officially the tire they designed that rim shape around, and they feel is the fastest combo. So, and that one is tubeless ready and all that. So, yeah, I guess that's an example of where we're still not quite seeing 28s, but it's a performance choice.
But certainly seems like it is far and away those narrow tires are the exception rather than the norm
Absolutely.
these days. So
yeah.
I think I had reviewed those original NV 4.5 ARs like almost 10 years ago now. Back then, they were so far ahead of their time that so many people were just kind of like, these are ridiculous. They were 25 mil internal, hookless, so on and so forth. And now that's just normal. That's kind of just that's just kind of how wheels are now. Took a little while, but seems like we're there now.
I'm feeling like a laggard with all this because I still think 25 mil internal width is too wide for pure road. I'd still rather have like a 21 to 23 mil. So I feel like I'm lagging behind and just an old grouch now as most wheel brands, or not most, but quite a number of wheel brands have moved to 25 mil internal widths on their road tires. Road wheels.
And on that note, a late entry into the Can't Believe That Happened award. You remember when the ETRTO standards changed and the going forward, it's like nothing smaller than 29 and a 25 internal. But if it was made before this year, it's fine. That I think that deserves a mention in that category.
Oops. It's okay. It's not confusing at all. But again, I know we've referenced this several times in previous episodes, but we're going to have to dedicate an episode to that one at some point. We'll just move that up on the list for 24. But speaking of wheels, the next category is another one that I wrote, is the OMG I Want Them award. So basically this goes to a product that kind of felt was, I guess, left a bit of a bit of an impact, or something that I sent back and would have preferred to have bought or kept if I had the money, that sort of thing. And my nominee for that would be those Synchros Capital SL Aero wheels, because Ronan, I think you've got a loaner set over there right now, and I haven't had a chance to get your impressions of them yet, but I was pretty damn impressed by these.
Synchros are going to have to fight me for them to get them back.
Oh, how about that? Well, it's good to know that you've got a similar opinion there, because they're stupidly light for how deep they are. They're really fast. They're very stiff, yet they don't necessarily ride particularly harsh. They're fully modern in terms of internal and external widths. Relatively speaking, they're quite a bit less expensive than something like a lightweight. So I still can't really find a whole lot wrong with these, aside from the fact that they use a DT Swiss Ratchet EXP rear hub internal, so they're kind of loud. But other than that, they're kind of awesome.
They're kind of loud depending on what you're coming from. I was coming from a couple of sets of wheels that were much louder, so I was kind of pleasantly surprised that they weren't as loud as I was expecting them to be. If I was to pick one flaw in them, it's just the hookless. I would I prefer a little hook in there. But apart from that, I remember actually when they were announced, it was during the tour, and we were like messaging back and forth, James, and you were like sending me dimensions and stuff. You were telling me the internal dimensions, and I thought you were telling me the external, because I knew what weight these things were. And yeah, that just sort of demonstrates how crazy the numbers and the stats are on those wheels. And yes, very much agreed on your suggestion for this award.
Well, unfortunately, as relatively inexpensive as they are, again, compared to what they go up against, I still didn't have enough money for them, so they went back. Maybe you actually have that set now. Hard to say.
How do you feel about them aesthetically? Because from my point of view, they look a little bit like a student design project.
I mean, they are a little industrial, I guess, particularly at the hub flange. But I don't know. I mean, generally speaking, when I'm out on a ride, I don't spend too much time just looking down at my front hub. Definitely not at my rear hub. Pretty low on my list of concerns.
I think they are definitely beaten in that respect by a couple of other wheel sets that I'm testing at the moment. The CRW Craft Racing Works, those have like a really glossy finish and just similar weight and just look fantastic. I don't dislike them, but aesthetically they don't jump out at me. It's the stats that really on paper, and then the ride feel as well. I've only had 2 rides in them, but
yeah. For me, like just purely from an aesthetic point of view, I think Partington is probably the aesthetic benchmark in that sense. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's a whole different price point of wheel set. So
I was gonna say it's also perhaps like the financial benchmark too.
Yeah, although lightweight still has them beat on that sense.
Still blows my mind. How is that possible? Anyway, Ronan, I don't know about your plans, but again, as I mentioned, I unfortunately was not planning on buying those. However, I think we all did buy some stuff this year. So our next category, sort of related to this conversation, is what were our best bike-related purchases of 2023. I was going to say, Dave, I want to start with you because I think you're pretty excited about your purchase.
Yeah, I bought a Cybertruck, aka a specialized turbo levo e-bike. So yeah, it's a semi, mid travel, I guess. Yeah, 160 fronts ish and 150 rear, and mullet wheel set and full power e-bike, and I'm loving it. It's fun. I am riding more as a result of it, and the geometry and suspension travel's given me confidence on trail sections that I'd lost faith in and lost my confidence on, and it's brought that confidence back, and I've been immediately taking that confidence back to much shorter travel bikes as well. So for me, it's just boosted my riding in every way possible. So I can't say anything bad about that bike. It's just transformed my riding.
Wow. How about that? That's quite a testament there.
Yeah.
Did you get one free when you bought that one though, Dave?
Did I get a second one? Sadly not. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I got the one that I got on sale, but yeah, they've it's apparently I chose a size and a model that is actually still in demand. So there you go. It wasn't the screaming deal of buy one get one free.
Bummer. Well, my purchase wasn't, well, I was just about to say that it maybe wasn't quite as exciting, although that's maybe debatable because I would say tops of my list for 2023 in that category was the actual proper shop grade work stand that I got this year. So it was the Park, for if you're looking for a part number, it's the Park PRS 3.3-2. So it has been 15, 16 years, something like that, since I have worked as a shop mechanic, and I have been pining for one of those proper super sturdy steel shop stands ever since then. Right before I got this Park one, I still have this Feedback Pro Mechanic HD, which is just an incredibly burly folding stand, but it is still a folding stand. It's still aluminum, so it's just not quite as sturdy.
Yeah.
This Park one, however, it's got this like 75-pound steel base and like this big steel mast, and it's just big and heavy and super stiff, and it is just an absolute luxury to work on stuff on this thing, and brought me
just
back
how
to
stable the bike stays when you do everything. It's just so lovely, and yeah, the ability to very finely tune the angle of the bike without bumping anything, or it's so smooth and so stable that while you're like bleeding a brake with like a Shimano bleed cup, you can adjust the angle of the bike by 5 degrees and no fluid bounces or anything like that. So it's
exactly like it is certainly not an inexpensive purchase, especially for a home mechanic, but oh man, like I said, it is such a luxury to have something that is just that sturdy to work on. It's going to be hard for me to ever go back. But then I guess my next step is going to be, I think once I really, really decide where this thing is going to live, then I think I'm actually just going to go ahead and bolt it to the floor, because then that would be sort of the next step.
Yep.
So maybe that'll happen in 24. We'll see.
Ronan, do you have a best purchase?
SAS Nootropics gels.
Never
Just
lost
one,
so much
just
weight
one.
in a 24-hour period.
Well, I had no job in February, and then we had a kid in July, so I didn't do much buying this year. The only thing that really springs to mind is, and
You bought a garage.
I've been building out a garage, and I bought a lot of different like tools to complete that job. I bought a circular saw, and then quickly realized that I needed what's called a Craig AccuCut, which makes cutting straight long sheets just so much easier. I've really enjoyed that.
For people without an Irish accent, that is Craig.
Craig. Okay.
Kreg.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're looking for a cutting guide on Google called Craig, you're probably not gonna find it. But yeah,
perhaps Craig has a Craig. I don't know, but if we're looking for one cycling related thing, I've and they're just completely impractical. Nobody's going to actually want another set of these, but the Miche Pistard Air, or Miche, or whatever you pronounce it.
It's Miche, isn't it?
Miche Pistard Air track crankset that I bought for that Ross bike that I optimized, and the pyramid cycle design chain rings to go with it. I used those on a bike on Zwift this morning, and just how narrow they are, how cool they look. They've really ticked a lot of boxes for me this year. Hardly got used, as I said, completely impractical, but I like them a lot.
Well, Ronan, I'm going to just go ahead and supersede your choice, and I'm just going to declare that your garage was the best bike-related purchase of all three of us this year, because
it's not there yet. Still, 3 years later, it's still a work in progress. It's turned into like that cathedral in Barcelona, but
okay, fair. And I guess this really didn't technically happen in 23 either, but it certainly, I think it goes without saying that it is closer to being completed now than it was at any other year. And maybe not. Okay. All right. Well, Nikkei crank arms and pyramid chainring it is. All right. Let's move on. All right. How about this next category? This is another one of mine. The What the Hell Were They Thinking award.
I think we're all in agreement in this one, are we?
What were they thinking? Who was thinking what?
So my nominee for this one is Campagnolo for ditching the thumb button on their new super
You're right. What the hell were they
electronic
thinking?
road group set. Yeah, so Ronan, I believe you are the only one of the three of us to have actually ridden this group set. I've had hands on it, but I haven't actually ridden thing.
Same.
That said, I have ridden God knows how many generations of mechanical and electronic Campagnolo group sets to this point, and the fact that they got rid of that super iconic thumb button for whatever its ergonomic foibles, that just seems like it was like the one thing that set them apart.
It goes further than that for me. It's like I think it's not the one thing, but it's one thing that a Campagnolo customer either doesn't mind or really, really likes. And it's been swapped, and yeah, I'm with you on this one, James. I wasn't a huge fan of that disappearing either.
Just can't scratching my head on that one, particularly since we had some early spy photos or some patent photos that suggested that the thumb paddle might just be transitioning to a thumb button. So it kind of gave us some hope there, but alas, that button is just for like setup and that sort of thing. So no thumb shifter button on Campagnolo electronic group sets anymore. Wah wah.
I was going to say, I think that's the bigger issue for me.
Yeah,
it is obviously like had the thumb been replaced with something that was just unquestionably
superior,
better.
Yeah,
fine. But from the brief ride that I had on it, I'm far from convinced that it has been.
Yeah, it's like kind of like almost a worse version of Shimano Di2, which is already somewhat polarizing with having the buttons so close to each other. So it's anyway. Yeah, I like to go further on this, and I know Campagnolo probably aren't stoked on us talking about this from this point of view, but I think from my point of view and from my circles of seeing like hardcore Campagnolo customers that have owned every generation of EPS or like every mechanical generation, and they ride Colnagos or they ride Pinarello Dogmas. From what I'm seeing, not a single one of them is interested in this new group set. They're all moving to Shimano after years of being anti-Shimano.
The anti-Shimano part aside, add me to that list, and that I would have looked towards a Campag group set before. I can't remember the time I bought like a standalone group set that wasn't Campagnolo, but I don't really have any interest in purchasing this new one.
Yeah, such a shame. So anyway, hopefully they can, in the meantime, keep finding success in mechanical group sets, because that is a market that they remain the best option in, I guess, as far as high end mechanical group sets. So yeah.
Aside from Ekar, it's the only category that they're in.
James, have you got a happier category there?
Yeah.
I don't have a happier category yet, but
yeah.
I do actually have a second entry for the What the Hell Were They Thinking award.
Oh.
And I know I've certainly made no secret my opinions of fully hidden, fully internal cable routing on road bikes. But as I've mentioned several times, that ship has clearly sailed, and I know that a lot of people just prefer it. However, my second nominee for this category is headset cable routing on mountain bikes, because I see absolutely zero benefit to this whatsoever, an awful lot of downside, and I have yet to hear a convincing argument from any brand, aside from maybe some e-bike brands, sort of, as far as why this is a good thing for consumers, because it's a mountain bike. The controls are still external at the handlebar. You've still got things like a front brake hose that has to be external. Like, it really seems to me like the worst of both worlds. It's not necessarily great in terms of aesthetics. It doesn't really clean things up the way you'd really want them to. It's certainly not like you have on a drop bar bike. And yet you still have you're still introducing huge maintenance headaches.
Unfortunately, I think we're just early days with it, and I think the next step is for brake hoses to be more integrated than they are now and run through one-piece cockpits. And I guess it's worth me stating I'm anti one-piece cockpits on mountain bikes. I'm anti-integrated brake hoses on mountain bikes. I'm not anti headset cable routing on mountain bikes, but I am where there is any mechanical cable involved. So I own a Factor hardtail that has just one brake hose running through the headset, and that is very clean. But that's a very high-end solution where everything else needs to be wireless. And I don't think we're there yet as an industry for forcing all other price points to have shittiness as a result of that.
And let me ask you this, Dave. For as clean as the front end of that Factor is, is it substantially cleaner than if you just had one little port at the head tube that didn't go through that headset bearing?
It is not. Although in Factor's defense, they do have those ports, so you don't have to use the headset cable routing on the Factor, which is kind of cool. But I decided to, and it is clean. And like I've mounted a number plate to that bike before, and that was quite nice. And it's a very niche application there. I'm not gonna defend it. I think it creates more complications than it needs to. And I'm thinking like that specialized Epic World Cup that I reviewed recently, like they've got a patent on a sort of a stopper-based integrated design, which is quite a cool design. But by the end of my testing period, I opened it up again to photograph, and it was just covered in grit. Those headset bearings were just really dirty. And that's fundamentally the big issue here, is that to have cables running through the headset, you have to have ports for them, and you're not going to make those waterproof or as well sealed as a traditional headset. So there's just so many compromises here.
So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat. What the hell were they thinking? Moving on to something a little bit more upbeat. I think this might be another one of my categories here. I think it is. The Problem Solver Award. Although, Dave, this one actually is a little bit more applicable to you personally, because my nominee for this is 3D printers. Because
how's yours going?
Mine is still my 3D printer still exists mostly as an image on a screen on a website somewhere where I could potentially order said 3D printer.
Gotcha.
It's still not in my house.
I have space for one in the garage that doesn't finish.
Perfect.
Nice.
Perfect.
There's a planned space for one.
They don't take up a lot of space. I've got
Dave,
I've got
you've
an
seen my
HP
garage
paper printer here, which is almost 3 times the size of my 3D printer.
You've seen my garage, Dave. I don't have time for that printer or a 3D printer or any of the stuff that I have currently. So
that's true.
Unless I end up sticking the thing on my kitchen counter, which also doesn't have enough room, I'm probably unfortunately not getting a 3D printer anytime soon. However,
also, how is a 2D printer so much more unreliable than a 3D printer? I just don't understand it. They've had decades to get this right.
Dave, I don't know, but like, would you consider maybe getting rid of your 2D printer and then just using your 3D printer to print all your documents?
I mean, at this rate, I may as well. That thing's so unreliable. It's just...
Do you even print documents anyway? Like,
very occasionally. I'm more using it for
thing?
scanning than printing. But then, I guess you have to print in order to scan. So it doesn't get used very often.
But anyway, the reason why I nominated 3D printers for this Problem Solver Award is because there are, Dave, as you can certainly attest, there are all sorts of situations where you wish you had just sort of one of something. And just sort of the by nature of how mass manufacturing works, a company is really only going to make something if they know that they can sell enough of them to offset the tooling and production costs. However, with a 3D printer, aside from the printer itself and the material, maybe some time, some electricity, there really is no tooling cost. So we're seeing all sorts of things popping up on the market, like custom shifter buttons and accessory mounts and headset spacers and just sort of one-off anything and everything. And it really has just opened up this world of little onesie twosie accessories for people that really we wouldn't have seen before from like a molded plastic or aluminum part or anything like that, because it just wasn't worth it. Dave, you had, I can't remember what bike it was now, but you had a need for a custom headset spacer not too long ago on a test bike.
Yeah, it was a Polygon.
And you just printed one, and there you go. You were done.
Yep. Yeah, it was like maybe 10 minutes of drawing time, and then just let the printer buzz away for 20 minutes, and then there you go. Got a solution that saved me from having to cut a steerer tube in order to test the bike. So, I think it's... there are a lot of other solutions. Like I look through my workshop, and I'm using 3D printed stuff every day when I work on bikes now, like whether it's top mounted bleed blocks from Chris Hirschap or non-marring tools for like removing cranks or something like that, or just bearing drifts, like one-off bearing drifts for weird size bearings that are now so commonly found in full suspension frames. Like just the other day I was doing a new Trek ABP suspension, and they've got a 20 by 30 mil bearing in the ABP now for UDH, which is not a standard size bearing. So yeah, of course I don't have a bearing drift for that, so now I do. So yeah, it's there's just every day comes an idea and a possibility to print something, and it's I definitely would miss it if I didn't have my 3D printer.
Stuff like that, Dave, do you like print on the side of it what that is that you've just printed, or how do you keep track of if you're printing so many things?
I should do that. No,
Chris Hirschap passed me that tip a couple of days ago. So
I just try to make it harder for my memory.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Use it or lose it.
Yeah.
All right. Next category is the More of This Please Bike Industry Award. Ronan, you've got a good one for this one, I think. It involves some bags, I think.
You remember a couple of weeks ago, Ortlieb had their repair week. Instead of having like a Black Friday sale or something like that, they just said, if I remember correctly, on your side of the Atlantic, James, it was like if you paid shipping, they would repair your bag for free. On this side, it was if you were in the UK, it was entirely free. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but I thought it was great that they effectively were offering repairs of products to make them last for longer rather than trying to sell us new stuff.
Yeah, I think the theme here is just anything that improves repairability of otherwise unrepairable products. So Ratio Technology for me is a really great example here, where they're offering sort of ways to keep old tram shifters running and other products going. And yeah, I'm all for seeing more of this. And I think there's far too many products still being created on the market that are not serviceable beyond their warranty period. Like the warranty, the brands are basically offering saying they'll support the product for 3 to 5 years after they stop selling it, which is approximately the warranty period. After that, you're on your own. And there are some significantly expensive products on the market that if, for example, you needed a headset spacer for some of these more integrated bikes 3 years from now, you might not be able to get them unless you had access to someone that had 3D print files and designs for it.
Just to clear up the Ortlieb one, it was 40% off for US-based customers. They could get it repaired 40% off. In the UK, you just covered the price of postage.
Either way, that is incredibly cool that their campaign for what normally was considered Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whatever, was essentially telling people to not buy anything.
Yeah.
It's maybe worth stating that the Ortlieb bags are made incredibly well to start with, so they probably didn't get a lot of them coming in for free repairs.
Yeah.
But, that's even better again, I guess.
Yeah, building something to last forever is obviously the best answer.
It's the first step. Yes.
And then supporting that product so it can last forever is the next step. I personally prefer to give my money to those companies that are creating products like that, which is why I own things like Chris King hubs and that sort of level of product. And I think it's worth considering that in your purchases.
Here. All right, well, let's move on to, we're going to swing the pendulum the other way again. We're going to get our nominees for the Meh Award, otherwise known as maybe the most underwhelming tech-related thing of 2023.
Otherwise known as the Angry Email Award.
Yeah, it could be. Dave, what you got for this one?
For me, it was probably Princeton Carbon Works' entry into mountain bike. With the P1, I think is the brand, the Singularis is the model. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like we're talking about a very high-end, expensive carbon wheel set that just didn't seem light enough for the price point, and no mention of like compliance or any sort of feature in that sort. It was just talk of light and stiff, but they weren't all that light. So, for me, it just felt like a miss.
Particularly given how we had been seeing those wheels all over the place underneath the likes of Pauline Ferrand Provo
they won some very big races. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Definitely some very, very big races won underneath those wheels. And for a long time, we had no information on them. So they certainly did a good job of building up the hype or building up the anticipation for that. And then they dropped, and we were kind of just like, meh.
Yeah, it's like 100 grams too heavy and $1,000 too much for the weight. And and then on top of that, the fact that they've split the brand, so they had a completely separate brand. Like, I knew these existed. I knew the brand. I am a tech editor, so I'm pretty decent at Google. I still couldn't find their webpage for them. So it's, I don't know. It was just, it was a product that very quickly didn't make a lot of noise.
Ronan, I'm curious about your nominee for this one, because Dave and I were actually both scratching our head as far as what you were referencing here. What are you talking about with this Perry-Nice team time trial thing?
That was my first suggestion. I've added another suggestion since then, but because that's maybe not entirely relevant for this podcast, but I'm sure there are some team time trial fans out there. And you remember they did this complete change to the format and how the team time trial would work, and everybody thought we would see like climbers sprinting it out for the finish line, and really it didn't change much. I think they changed how many people you had to finish with. Anyway, it shows you how exhilarating it was that I can't quite remember what exactly it was.
Either way, Ronan, how is this tech related?
It's time trials. It's team time trials. It's entirely tech related.
What else you got?
The other thing I got was I'm going to go right back to the very first podcast, the very first Geek Warning I think we recorded for the Wahoo steer.
Yeah.
Because that was a meh moment. And I don't believe those exist anymore.
Shocker.
I certainly, went looking for them. And
can you refresh our memory of what the Wahoo steer is or was?
It's that sort of platform that attaches to a out front head unit mount on your handlebars, and then you could like push it left or push it right, and you would have your phone sitting on it, and the movement of your phone would sort of guide your avatar on RGT.
It would tilt your phone, right?
Yeah. It wasn't very good.
I would say, Ronan, I think you're gonna win that one, because that product was so meh that I actually had completely forgotten about it. I mean, I've got a nominee for this one, but I'm not sure I can top that one, because my nominee, Dave, tell me if you agree with this one, was the Specialized Epic World Cup.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there's going to be one race next year, the Olympics, where that bike might actually serve a purpose, but it'll be used in a different format to how it's sold. It looks like, there's lockouts and stuff being run by the pros on that bike. But sure, I agree with that.
Yeah, because that was a bike that I think we all had, at least Dave, you and I had a lot of anticipation for, looking at spy photos and that sort of thing. Specialized doesn't usually whiff all that often, especially when it comes to mountain bike stuff. We've certainly got a lot of experience there, and having both of us spent an awful lot of time on two different models, you in Australia, me here in the US, and we both kind of came away from that as like, yeah.
I think there are scenarios where that bike excels. It's a very slim specific use, and that's not really what you want out of a very high-end race bike. You want a race bike to be versatile. That isn't it. So
unless you've got a new garage to fill with bikes, like Ronan does right now, in which case, that one could be handy to have for that one scenario where it works out. Anyway, the next category is kind of related to what we just talked about, actually, is the I'm calling this the I Am So Here for This award, because my nominee for that is modern XC bikes, because that whole category is absolutely on fire right now, and I am so here for that, because I love what modern cross-country bikes have turned into. I love what modern cross-country riding has turned into. It's basically sort of just like what we used to use trail bikes for, except now the bikes are lighter and just as capable, more fun, faster, and it just seems like all of a sudden we have this new breed of cross-country bikes that are just absolutely awesome. I mean, not too long ago, I don't know, like maybe they would have been categorized as downcountry bikes, but even that I don't think is completely accurately describing what they are. They are just super, super capable, fast cross-country bikes designed to cover a lot of terrain very quickly and be super capable across a wide variety of terrain. And there's so many options right now, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and it's making that whole category of cross-country all exciting again. People have overbiked for years for a lot of their trails, and they're now, rediscovering cross-country and rediscovering that climbs can be fun, and that's, for me, it's the most exciting category of mountain bikes right now, for sure.
Definitely. Super fun to watch.
Well, if you're adding mountain bikes, I'm going to add all the new track bikes that we've seen at the World Championships, because I am here for those. Those were just fantastic.
There is a lot of extreme stuff going on in track racing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a standout for you, Ronan?
I mean, the New Hope is interesting. The new BMC is interesting. The new Factor is interesting. The look is wild, but I think the one that really caught my eye was the Japanese bike with like all sorts of veins and all sorts through it, manipulating flow and yeah.
Ronan, I'm curious, how far away is the nearest velodrome for you?
Probably would have been Glasgow. I can hop on a flight here and be in Glasgow, and I think you land before you take off. It's a charter flight, but that's probably the closest. But it's on a different island.
Bummer, because I was actually curious how likely it would be that you could perhaps get into track racing yourself, and I guess that's not very likely. You're going to need a much, much bigger garage.
Now there's an idea.
Maybe a topic we'll explore later. Dave, you've got a pretty interesting submission for our next category here, the Oops, I Put My Foot in My Mouth award. It's related to SRAM and chainstays.
This one was a big one as far as when it got released on YouTube, of people commenting without having seen it. And it's SRAM transmission, and the take was that the way it was now relying on the removal of the rear derailleur hanger meant that there was a solid interface between the derailleur and the frame, and that this new SRAM transmission would see everyone breaking their chainstays instead of bending derailleur hangers. And you know what? I think it's now nearly 9 months since this was released, and I think those people are wrong. I thought those people were wrong. Now I know those people are wrong.
I'm pretty sure we haven't seen. Well, I haven't even heard of one yet, have we?
I personally haven't. I mean, it's not impossible that they're out there, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly not a widespread thing, and certainly from my point of view, the only issues I've seen with these derailleurs is just people taking the derailleur cage with sticks and things like that, and then it's a tool-free replacement. The derailleur itself is incredibly sturdy, and it's worth emphasizing that it's the through axle that takes the load, not the chainstay. So yeah, I think that was an incredibly wrong take as far as things that would happen.
And Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've seen a rash of videos from anyone saying like, "Oh, hey, I was completely wrong about this thing however many months ago."
Funny
Oops.
that, hey, yeah, just silence. Oh well.
Crickets.
Yeah. So I guess my joke off the back of this that I created into a meme at the time was that SRAM also employs engineers. So I think that's just worth keeping in mind. Anyway, I'll leave it there.
They're not real engineers, Dave. They're bicycle engineers. They're not internet engineers.
Gotcha. Sure. Cool.
Whole different category.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. This next category is pretty much all you, because not only did you pick the category, you're the only one with an entry here. What is the most exciting new tool of 2023?
I thought you'd never ask. What are the chances?
I made you wait this long, Dave.
For me, the most exciting new tool, you were speaking earlier about your best purchase being a shop repair stand, and I think the most exciting new tool is a shop repair stand. So it is the Remco electric bike stand out of the US, and I think that is so cool because it's not all that much more expensive than the park tool that you're using, but it adds electric assist. So it'll very handily lift. I believe it's 100 pounds. I've been testing it, and I've only been testing like a pre-production version, so it's missing out on some of the more refined features of the production version. But I'm loving it. It's so good for e-bikes, and I'm also really enjoying it for like whenever I'm working on different styles of bike. So say I work on an aero style bike, and I want to use a Hero Bell frame clamp in it. I can actually just push a button, and then the frame all of a sudden comes to a more applicable height because it's not being hung by the C-post. Or if I'm bleeding a brake and because I'm a shorty, I can lower the bike so I can actually see what the bleed cup's doing, and rather than having to be on my tippy toes. So I'm just loving the ability to quickly and easily adjust the height of a bike.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to mention too, I was actually just talking to a good friend of mine, Jim Potter, or he's the owner at Vecchio's bike shop here in town. Jim's been doing this for a very, very long time. He's been a professional bike mechanic for, it's got to be 30-something plus years. And one issue that he mentioned to me is that he's been doing this for so long that he's actually starting to have some shoulder issues in the arm that he typically uses to lift the bikes up into the stand. And keep in mind that Vecchios, they do mountain bikes. They work on pretty much anything, but their specialty is kind of higher end road bikes. So it's not like the bikes that Jim is picking up day in and day out are particularly heavy. But when you're doing that over and over and over and over and over again over that long of a time,
20 plus times a day,
yeah, and it is kind of an awkward motion. I can see how that could develop into some sort of overuse injury. So
for sure,
while we are primarily looking at this Remco electric bike stand add-on as kind of like a really neat kind of convenience and fun thing, it actually could be like a physical benefit thing to a lot of people, and particularly when we're looking at e-bikes that are really heavy. Like I had a shifter cable snap on my Urban Arrow just the other day, and I currently have that thing propped up on a milk crate because that's kind of just how I have to work on it, and it's very inconvenient. However, it'd be certainly much easier if I had something like that Remco, because then I can sort of just clamp at least the back end of it and just sort of like stably tip it up, raise it up a little bit. And it's just not quite as convenient with even like a really good conventional shop work stand.
Yeah.
And certainly for a lot of mechanics out there, a lot of home mechanics, professionals, whatever, who are working with a lot of e-bikes these days, that sort of electronic lifting power can definitely be a game changer, I think, for people.
It's a game changer. I think it's a occupational health and safety requirement as well for anyone regularly working on heavy e-bikes. I think, a lot of shops are being a little bit reckless by not having this sort of stand in their facilities and trying to lift up, heavy urban bikes and e-bikes on a regular basis. I think that's just asking for people to be injured. So, it's worth noting that Remco is definitely not the first mover in this space. Like, Park Tool and Junior and VAR and the list goes on, and EVT has a really nice mechanical assisted work stand. These have existed for quite a few years, and in some cases, a lot of those stands are probably better for professional use because they have higher lifting capacities and they go higher and they go lower. The difference here is that the Remco is actually at a consumer price point, but to a professional quality standard. So we're talking, I think it's like $600 for one of these, which is not.
For the add-on module anyway, it's not for the entire stand.
Sure, yeah, but that's not a huge amount of money given the closest competitor is 3-4 times that price, and significantly heavier and more difficult and time-consuming to set up. So, I find this product really exciting.
Ronan, you got anything for this category?
Well, one more suggestion for this category then, and that is
it's only me. Sorry, it's my category.
I had a tool that I got excited about this year. That was, I actually don't have it, but the UCI legality tool from WhatsApp, which quickly and easily, without any maths and stuff, figures out whether your front end of your time trial bike is UCI legal or not. It works out the angle of your extensions and the height to the top of them and the reach. Pretty quickly tells you if you're. I've had to play about with one. I just don't have one.
Have these been adopted by the UCI?
No, of course not. I don't think so. But
and I was going to say, even if they had been adopted by the UCI, have they been adopted by every UCI commissaire such that there's no debate as to whether or not the thing works or doesn't work?
I mean, it's sort of irrelevant if it's adopted or not by the UCI. It's how it's used by the UCI commissaire on the ground that determines whether or not a legal bike is permitted for one race and then permitted again for the next race or not. But we'll not get into that. I liked it and I want one.
Well, I was going to say, hopefully that one's less expensive than the Remco Dual, but it might not be.
I don't know how much the Remco is. I heard you guys mention £600 there. It's not that. It's like £150 or something like that. So it's still not cheap.
Ronan, you got to have it though. You got to have it. Let's wrap up with our last category for this year's award show. And this one is going to be the most anticipated new product, I guess, of 2024. Dave, what you got here?
That's a very good question. I am going to go out on a limb here and say, hopefully, fingers crossed, Shimano GRX Di2 12-speed. I think given what we saw with 12-speed mechanical, perhaps it won't be as huge of a change as what people might hope or expect, but I'll take it. If they take some of the ergonomics design and improved braking that they've got in current 11-speed Di2, and they merge it with the Hyperglide Plus 10 to 51 cassette, and it's a 1x semi-wireless group set, I think that could be really cool for a gravel bike.
That would be really cool. And I guess realistically, if I remember correctly, right now, GRX, I guess, do they even still sell? Yeah, they do still sell GRX Di2, but that is the last fully wired Di2 group set that Shimano has right now, right?
Yep, I believe so. And unless you're counting like 12 speed rim brake stuff.
True. And I guess, you know, their e-bike, mountain bike stuff.
Yep. But that's also current. Yeah, I think that's exciting. And I mean, all the rumors I've heard is that this would probably happen at a rough time to maybe seeing an XTR Di2 group set, which we haven't seen for years and years. So yeah, who knows? We'll see. Maybe it won't come.
Or maybe it will.
Maybe it will.
XTR Di2 was one of my picks for most anticipated new product because I was a huge fan of the previous generation of XTR Di2, and that's obviously not competitive now. It was fully wired. It was 11 speed. It was kind of built primarily around a 2x format up front, but I still think it was some of the absolute best shifting of anything I've ever used for a mountain bike drivetrain.
Super reliable too.
Super reliable, really quick. I mean, if Shimano is able to do everything that I like about mechanical XTR right now, and then translate that into an electronic version that kind of eliminates some of the finickiness of the 12-speed mechanical format, then that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, the big barrier for me, which obviously Shimano will have to come up with a solution for, but current Di2 requires, you know, a battery between the derailleurs. That battery is often placed underneath the seat post, and that's just not an option on mountain bikes or a lot of gravel bikes where you're talking about having a dropper post. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with there. I mean, the gravel bike I own has a little hatch in the down tube that you could, in theory, put a battery in, but I still don't think that's as elegant as a solution as what will need to happen. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we end up having batteries integrated into the derailleur or not. But I suspect not.
I'm going to go for a grip set too. And I'm going to anticipate a new SRAM Red grip set. I think it's going to be fully wired, rim brake only. No, I think it's overdue at this point.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. It's the oldest group set in the range. Yeah.
Particularly looking forward. I think I'm particularly looking forward to it because of the updates to Rival and Force recently, which, you know, in another world, those updates or those aesthetical updates could have been introduced to Red first and then trickled down. So if they're coming to Rival and Force, I'm thinking, well, Red must be entirely different. And then I'm also thinking that if you think about the other parts of a road bike build, the frame, the disc brake wheels, all the other components, everything else is just about as light as it can get now. It's really over to the grip set manufacturers to get us back to sort of rim brake bike weight territory. Yeah, I'm hoping SRAM has maybe able to achieve that, but guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the new Rival and Force, and like the hood ergonomics are improved, are better than Red. You know, like they're a smaller shape, and so you know you can imagine that would be improved further, maybe. But yeah, for me, I think perhaps the thing I hope for is that we don't see chainrings integrated into power meters any further, and that those chainrings are maybe replaceable of the power meter, which is like I'm basing that on, say, Transmission XXSL, which the chainring's integrated into the power meter, but with a special tool you can remove the ring. So fingers crossed.
Well, we'll find out. I think we're all expecting to see that next year, 2024, so it shouldn't be too far away. Yeah, I guess we should start putting together a list of features that we think are going to be included and just see if we're right or not. We can talk about that after the holidays. I do have one last nominee for most anticipated new product. And as underwhelmed as I was with the Specialized Epic World Cup, I am very excited to see what I am expecting to be a new Specialized Epic Evo. Because the current Epic Evo, I would argue, it's got to be one of the most popular, highly capable cross-country full suspension bikes that are out there right now. Specialized ticked so many boxes with that bike. It's shockingly light for what you get out of it. The suspension works really well. It handles quite well. Somehow doesn't seem super fragile considering how light it is. It looks good. Yeah. It's offered at a whole bunch of different levels. I bought one for my wife. She loves it. I'm hoping that Specialized doesn't kind of ruin it with headset cable routing.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Which seems likely, but however, I would love to see what Specialized would do with that thing as an evolution of what's already out there.
They kind of like, from my point of view, all they need to do to it is reduce the seat tube length so you can run longer droppers on it, and maybe lower the bottom bracket a little bit to keep up with trends of people running shorter cranks, because it is quite a tall bike. That would be it for me. That's all I want. And maybe this, maybe an extra 5 mil in the rear, in the rear travel. But it's really just very subtle changes in order to keep that bike incredibly competitive. The rumor I'd heard is that this past World Cup season, we saw quite a few of their Specialized factory racing pros racing on the Epic Evo. And the story I was told is that was actually the new bike. In which case, perhaps it's very similar to the old one because we didn't pick it. So we'll see. Yeah.
Intriguing. Well, that would be fun. So, Specialized, if you're listening, put us down for a list for a test sample, please, because we would love to see what's going on with that one. All right. Well, I think that's a good spot to wrap up this year's awards show. And then on a high note, something that we're looking forward to for the new year. Oh, Ronan, what you got?
One last best product of the year. And I think that has to be Escape Collective. Is that even in doubt?
That's a good bonus category, Ronan.
Geek Warning especially, maybe, but definitely Escape Collective as a whole.
I mean, I don't have any arguments with that one. I would
I'm met with stunned silence here, guys. You're supposed to support me on this one.
I feel really awkward to disagree with you, Ronan.
I was also kind of thinking to myself, like what category would that be under? I'm just not going to bother assigning that to a category at this point because, I would say a lot of work certainly has gone into this thing, and people seem to be quite happy with what we've put together. I think so far what we've done has been pretty good. People seem, like I said, quite happy with it. We're still signing up new members. And actually, memberships have accelerated in the last few weeks and months. So that's been a good sign that maybe more people are finding out about us.
Let us know how many people who have purchased a membership that is at least in the top 3 cycling things that they bought this year, let's say. Is that your... What was the product we had? Or what was the category we had for ourselves? Purchase of the year?
Best purchase? Yeah.
Best purchase, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it best purchase for anybody?
Yeah, and if we're not the best purchase, then did we suggest your best purchase?
Oh, that's a good one too. This could be a fiery comment section.
Yes, comments of the site post for this podcast, please.
All right, well that will do it for our inaugural Geek Warning Awards episode. A couple of quick announcements before we sign off this week. We've got a bunch of fresh new tech editorial products here at Escape Collective that you should know about, including Dave's tools and workshop-focused newsletter called Threaded, and Ronan's Performance Process podcast, where he dives deep into anything and everything related to going fast on your bike. Threaded is free for everyone, but Performance Process is only for our Escape Collective members, as are the members-only bonus episodes of Geek Warning. If you need a little extra incentive, we're running a holiday special. If you sign up for an annual membership, you'll get a free t-shirt as a gift from all of us here at Escape Collective. Just head over to escapecollective.com/Christmas to get that done. I promise you it's a quick and painless process, and if you want to be super sneaky and generous, you can maybe even see about gifting a membership to one of your cycling buddies and keeping the t-shirt for yourself. But don't tell anyone we suggested that. Anyway, we'll be back with one last regular episode and one more members-only bonus episode of Geek Warning before we take a short break for the holidays, so we'll see you all next week.